Josh Brolin is a fantastic actor who has appeared in around 70 movies over 4 decades. However, most of you will probably know him best as Thanos from the Avengers movie series. Since Thanos is arguably the most popular supervillain in the Marvel Universe, Brolin has made a ton of money for this role. Not to mention all of his other roles in big-budget movies. Stay tuned until the end to see which unique hobby Brolin spends his money on. Before we begin, hit that subscribe button so you can see how other celebrities spend the money we all wish we had. Now, here's how Thanos, Josh Brolin, spends his millions. Brolin has come a long way to play the main antagonist in one of the most profitable movies of all time. And there's a sequel primed to be even more profitable. The 50-year-old actor made an estimated $6 million for Avengers: Infinity War. It's probably quite obvious to say that Brolin was not making nearly this much when he got cast in The Goonies as a 16-year-old. If his salary for The Goonies was even 1% of his salary for Avengers, we'd be surprised. Though Brolin attained fame for his first film role, especially among teenage girls, he abandoned film acting soon after and didn't come back to the big screen until his late 20s. He spent this decade-long break traveling, partying, and working on Broadway and TV. He was active in Hollywood in the late 90s and early 2000s, but it wasn't until the late 2000s, when Brolin was approaching 40, that he began starring in high-profile movies, for which his acting would become critically acclaimed. These include 2007's No Country for Old Men, 2008's W, and 2008's Milk, the last of which earned Brolin an Oscar nomination. Afterwards, Brolin was rockin' in the industry, earning upwards of $1 million a movie. But it wasn't until 2014, when he made a cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy, that Brolin would enter the realm of the multi-million-dollar paycheck. From that point on, the actor was entrenched in the lucrative Marvel universe. He would reprise his Guardians of the Galaxy role of Thanos in all subsequent Marvel movies, and in 2017, he was cast as Cable, another Marvel hero, as part of a 4-film contract beginning with 2018's Deadpool 2. Thanks in large part to his fortuitous relationship with one of the richest media franchises in the world, Brolin is worth an estimated $35 million. The best place to start when detailing Brolin's spending habits is his house. Because once you know how he regards his house, you'll know how he regards every other material indulgence. According to a 2018 Men's Journal article, Brolin owns a house in Malibu, California. We know what you're thinking, another typical celebrity with a typically lavish mansion. But keep your assumptions in check. Josh Brolin is far from a typical celebrity. Although he does have a beach house in Malibu, it was described by Men's Journal as a grown-up surf shack. And this does not seem like an exaggeration. The house is only 1,400 square feet, a far cry from the 20,000 square foot mega mansions of his contemporaries. And the house isn't even his own, it's a rental. The original plan was to use this surf shack as a temporary residence while he had a mansion built in the region that was more wage appropriate. However, Brolin rejected this plan after realizing that he and his wife didn't need a giant house, since the surf shack more than fulfilled their needs. Brolin does have a typical mansion, and possibly more than one, but they're collecting dust as he and his wife, and his newborn daughter, celebrate the freedom that comes with living in a 1,400-foot shack. We hope that we've set the tempo for this video, because it's not going to get too much more ostentatious. Josh Brolin is a real man, and a real man doesn't buy things just to show them off. He buys things because they're useful. And what's more useful to a man who plays the statuesque character Cable than an exercise program? As we mentioned before, Brolin's no spring chicken. He's in his 6th decade of life, which means he has to work extra hard to get into superhero shape. This entails spending a lot of money on specialized training. As could be seen on Brolin's Instagram during pre-production for Deadpool 2. He had a workout team, a group of personal trainers, including Justin David LOVATO of Built Nutrition and Training, as well as sponsors like Gold's Gym and Huntington Beach Max Muscle, which helped him reach his fitness goals. And reach is an understatement. Though money certainly helped Brolin, a healthy diet and efficient exercises were the most important parts of his regimen. Drop sets and heavy movements were emphasized, as well as eating fish, rice, eggs, and veggies. Sugar, breads, and pastas were prohibited. So although it may seem that Brolin spent money on a chiseled physique to show it off, it was only a side effect of having to play the 6'8", 350-pound Cable. In order to get in shape, you need to feel comfortable. This is what Brolin had in mind when he launched an activewear company with his wife Catherine in 2017. The clothing line is called Prevail Activewear, and this is where much of Brolin's money has been going. Prevail Activewear sells t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and hats in men's, women's, and children's sizes. The company's logo is a Norse symbol called Uruz, which represents rejuvenation and applies to the free-form, free-flowing, and freestyling design of the activewear. More than anything, however, Prevail Activewear is for the children, literally and spiritually. Brolin insisted that 50% of the profit made from the clothing line goes to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital and the Epidermolysis Bullosa Medical Research Foundation. You may therefore consider Prevail Activewear to be just as much of a business as it is a charity. We don't know exactly how much Brolin has invested in the clothing line or donated to charity, but we assume it's substantial, because what person wouldn't want to buy apparel from the guy who plays both Thanos and Cable? But it hasn't always been about health and charity for Brolin. We skated over it before, but much of his teens and 20s were spent without steady acting gigs, meaning that he spent most of his teens acting like a typical youngster. And sometimes his behavior went beyond the normal hedonism of youngsters. Hence why we have to transition to the spending habits of a young Brolin, since they're too interesting to pass up. Before he landed his life-changing role in The Goonies, this future star was actually in a gang. He and his crew were called the Cedo Rats, and they operated out of Montecito, California. Their revenue was earned from petty theft, usually in the form of pilfering radios from cars and reselling them. So this is how teenage Brolin made his money. And he would spend this money on drums and illicit substances. The former is not a bad purchase, but the latter got Brolin into some predictable trouble. He had several stints in jail and was facing a prison sentence when he decided to turn his life around. And although Brolin has had a few brushes with the law later in life, he's generally committed to making and spending money in proper ways. Suffice it to say that stealing car radios is a relic of Brolin's past, and unless he gets really nostalgic, we can't see him doing it again. Now for something a little lighter, like a light read, for instance. We have affection for anyone who chooses a book over a video. Yes, we realize how ironic this statement is coming from TheRichest, but it takes discipline to open a 600-page book amidst so many more attractive stimuli, so Josh Brolin gets kudos from us. A leisurely activity that Brolin spends money on is reading. He loves books, and has gone so far as to refer to them as his solace. In a 2008 issue of Oprah's O magazine, Brolin delved deep into his collection to reveal to the magazine's readers his absolute favorite books. His choices were as follows: The Colossus of Marusi by Henry Miller, The Cinnamon Peeler by Michael Ondaatje. He also referenced A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, Haroun and the Sea of Stories by Salman Rushdie, and The Executioner's Song by Norman Mailer. In the same interview, he mentioned that he read 18 books about the Republican Party to prepare for the role of George W. Bush in the movie W. He also admitted that, although he's a Democrat, he learned so much about the Republican rhetoric as to actually agree with some of it. This is the prime value of reading. Once you know enough about a topic, it's harder to hate it. Now that the lighter stuff is out of the way, we have to talk about the heavy stuff, because it's relevant to Brolin's spending. In 2004, Brolin married fellow Oscar nominee Diane Lane in what instantly became one of Hollywood's most celebrated relationships. Of course, as is the case with many marriages, celebrity or otherwise, it ended in divorce. In 2013, after 9 years of marriage, Lane and Brolin made their separation official by coming to an agreement. This agreement concerned money, and we presume lots and lots of it. As most of you probably know, a high-profile divorce can only be enacted when the parties agree on a sum to be paid by the higher-earning spouse to that whose financial situation will be compromised as a result of the separation. When you're ordered to pay a certain amount to your former spouse over a specific period of time, this is called alimony. Luckily, Josh Brolin didn't have to pay alimony to Diane Lane, but he did have to pay part of what news outlets reported to be a private financial agreement. However, this wasn't the only marriage of Brolin's life, nor the only one to end in divorce. He's been married 3 times. The first one to Alice Adair from 1988 to 1994, the second to Diane Lane, and the third to Catherine Boyd, which began in 2016 and is still ongoing. We don't know the details of his first divorce, but we assume he paid a hefty sum, and possibly in the form of alimony. Thus, it can be deduced that one of Brolin's main expenses over the last decades is his former wives. Hopefully the same fate doesn't befall his current marriage. By all appearances, he and his wife are very happy, and Brolin must be relieved to be spending money that could have gone to alimony on his lovely wife and his brand new daughter. It should be clear to everyone watching this video that Josh Brolin's life has been far from easy. It's also been far from simple. While many actors' paths to stardom have been smooth, Brolin had a very rocky time, taking terrible roles, spending a decade away from the movies, grinding for nearly 20 years in the business before becoming a respected actor, and almost abandoning the profession altogether. The last of which was the result of getting into stock trading. In the mid-90s, Brolin was such a successful day trader that he considered quitting acting. Although he stuck with the profession for which he's now revered, Brolin continues to trade in some capacity, which means that the stock market may be the place where the majority of his money goes. But unlike most of his marriages, this relationship is symbiotic, as the market puts a lot of money into his pocket as well. In fact, Brolin claimed in 2007 that he made far more money day trading than he did from movies. Now that he's Thanos, we doubt that this claim still stands, but this takes little away from the impressive figures gleaned from his stock trading life. A year after starting his own trading website called MarketProbability.com, Brolin told interviewer Charlie Rose that he was up 58%. He also mentioned that he started getting into hedge funds and would soon be managing a $40 million account. The surprises never end when learning about Josh Brolin, and we're excited to see what the future holds for the superhero and day trader. That's all for how Thanos, Josh Brolin, spends his millions. What's the most surprising fact you learned about Brolin? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.